Today, we're diving into the playbook for one of the most intense and strategic games in the entire corporate world, the takeover. This isn't just about a bunch of money changing hands. It's a calculated game of chess with a very clear and very strict set of rules. So, you might be wondering, how does this actually work, right? How does one company actually go about buying up a huge chunk or even taking full control of another company that's listed on the stock market? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down today, piece by piece, to demystify this whole fascinating process. We're going to tackle this in 5 key phases. First up, we'll set the stage and look at why these rules even exist. Then we'll get into the first critical moves, the public offer itself, and what happens when things get really interesting and a rival bidder shows up. And finally, we'll cover the duties and, of course, the penalties for every single player involved. Okay, so let's get into the setup. This whole game is governed by the Securities Act of 2015. And really, the entire point of these regulations is to create a fair and totally transparent playing field. It's all about making sure that when a massive shift in ownership is about to go down, every single shareholder, from the big institutions to the small retail investor, is protected and kept in the loop. First, let's meet our main player, the acquirer. This could be a person, it could be a company, but they're the one kicking everything off. They're making the strategic moves to scoop up voting shares or, gain outright control of their objective. And of course, every acquirer needs a goal, an objective. And in this game, that is the target company. This is the publicly traded company that's in the acquirer's sights. They are the prize to be won. Now, here's a really key point. An acquirer almost never moves alone. And the law knows this. It has this concept called persons acting in concert. Basically, it means anyone who's cooperating with the acquirer, we're talking subsidiaries, financial advisors, even relatives, is treated as part of the very same team. So it's their collective shareholding that really matters. All right, now for the part where the action really starts. The game truly begins when an acquirer's stake in that target company crosses certain key percentages. Think of them as tripwires that trigger mandatory actions you just can't ignore. The very first tripwire is set at 10%. Now, I know 10% might not sound like a huge amount, but believe me, crossing this line changes absolutely everything. The second your total stake, and remember, that includes everyone acting in concert with you, goes over 10%, you have to step out of the shadows. The clock starts ticking. You have just 2 working days to officially disclose your entire holding to the target company, the stock exchange, and the regulator, the SEC. The secret is out. Your intentions are on the table. The next threshold, well, this is the big one. This is pretty much the point of no return in our playbook, hitting over 30% of the voting shares, or gaining what's defined as control of the company. See, once you cross that 30% line, you can't just keep quietly buying up shares on the market anymore. The rules force your hand. You must now make a formal public offer to buy shares from every single one of the remaining shareholders. You've shown your hand. And now you have to play it out in the open for everyone to see. Okay, so let's get into the real nuts and bolts of the playbook, the public offer itself. This isn't just a simple, hey, I'd like to buy your shares. No, it's a highly regulated process with a very strict procedure and an even stricter timeline. Now, what's really interesting here is how the rules try to make sure the price is fair for everyone. The minimum price the acquirer can offer isn't just some number they pull out of thin air. For a stock that trades a lot, it's based on recent market prices, what's fair and current. But, and this is the clever part, for stocks that don't trade very often, the rules switch to a valuation based on the company's actual net asset value. This protects sellers by focusing on the company's real, fundamental worth, not a potentially stale market price. And this whole process, it runs like absolute clockwork. From the moment of that public announcement, a whole series of deadlines just kicks right in. The target company has to figure out who's eligible, the acquirer sends out the formal offer letters, and then a very specific window opens up, the acceptance period, where shareholders can actually decide to sell. The whole thing is designed for order and predictability. And here is a super crucial point. The public offer can't just be some token gesture. The acquirer has to make an offer to buy at least half, 50% of all the shares they don't already own. This rule makes sure that the offer is actually substantial and gives a huge number of shareholders a real, meaningful chance to sell and exit their position if that's what they want to do. But, this is where the takeover game can get really, really dramatic.
What happens when a second player sees that a company is in play and decides, hey, I want it too? Well, that triggers a competitive bidding situation, what we call the counteroffer.
A bidding war has its own set of rapid-fire rules. A new bidder gets just 21 days from that first offer to launch a higher, competitive bid. The original acquirer then has a super tight 7-day window to respond, either by upping their own offer or by walking away. And right up until the final week, any player can sweeten their deal. It's just this fast-paced battle of strategy and, well, financial firepower. A fair game requires everyone to play by the rules. So let's break down the specific duties for each of the key parties involved. You've got the acquirer making the offer, the target company's board, and this crucial intermediary called the manager to the offer.
So the acquirer carries a really heavy burden of responsibility. They can't just make an offer on a whim. They must have firm financial arrangements ready to go before they even announce the bid. And they have to prove it by posting security, like cash or a bank guarantee. And crucially, they have to treat all shareholders the same and pay up promptly.
Now, what about the target company's board? Well, they're not allowed to play defense by sabotaging their own company. During that offer period, they are strictly forbidden from taking what you might call poison pill actions, selling off key assets or issuing a flood of new shares to dilute the acquirer. Their job is to facilitate the process, provide the necessary info, and ultimately, if the deal goes through, allow for fair representation on the board. Okay, so who is this manager to the offer? Think of them as the licensed referee of the whole game. They're appointed by the acquirer, and it's their job to handle the technical execution. They do their homework on the acquirer to make sure they're credible and can actually fund the deal. They manage all the paperwork, handle the security deposit, and make sure everything is filed correctly with the regulators. They keep everyone honest. And as you can see, these rules have some serious teeth. An acquirer that breaks the rules can be banned from making any acquisitions for 3 whole years. And for the target company's management, a breach can mean getting disqualified from being a director or CEO in any listed company for 2 years. We're talking about career-altering penalties here, designed to make sure everyone plays by the book. So, as we've seen, this takeover playbook lays out a really clear, structured, and transparent process for what is a massive event in a company's life. The rules are designed to balance the ambition of the person buying with the rights of the people who already own a piece of the company. But it does leave us with a final question, doesn't it? In a game with such high stakes, with so much on the line, do these rules truly create a level playing field for the small investor against a powerful corporate giant? That's something to think about. Thanks for watching.